Welcome to the deep dive. You've given us some really fascinating sources today, and we're going to be digging into something, well, incredibly fundamental, something that shapes almost everything about us.
That's right. We're looking at the human need for belonging. It's just everywhere, across all cultures, all ages.
Absolutely. But
Yeah.
what's really interesting about the material today is the angle, the lens we're using. We're not just talking feelings here. We're looking at this very human thing through the analytical perspective of AI.
Exactly. The sources kind of treat belonging less like just a feeling and more like, well, what would a powerful AI see? If it crunched the numbers on human history, biology, behavior, what patterns would emerge? What's the underlying structure it identifies?
Right. So that's our mission today. Let's break down that AI perspective. What does it actually reveal about belonging? And maybe how does seeing it this way change how you think about your own need for connection? Because, fair warning, this touches on history, biology, even things like philosophy and math. It gets pretty broad.
It does. Let's jump in. So the first big takeaway, looking through this AI lens, is that belonging isn't just one simple thing. The sources frame it as a complex, sort of multi-layered, emergent property.
Emergent property.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like how a traffic jam emerges from individual cars following simple rules. Not planned, but it happens.
Exactly like that. It bubbles up from countless smaller interactions, biological signals, psychological needs, social rules. And when an AI analyzes massive amounts of data on human behavior, this drive for connection consistently appears. It looks like a core motivational force, almost like a fundamental driving algorithm in our human setup.
A driving algorithm. Wow. That's a stark way to put it for something that feels so emotional.
It is, but it's optimized, analytically speaking, for survival, for stability.
Okay, so if it's an algorithm, how does the AI see it working across, say, history? What does the data show there?
Well, the AI chews through historical records, like data sets, right? Looking for recurring patterns in group behavior. And it finds them over and over. Early tribes banding together that offered protection, better resources, higher survival rates in the data. Then villages, cities, nations. The AI sees these as iterations of the same pattern. Humans grouping up for the benefits, shared identity, cooperation, support.
So history isn't just stories of kings and battles to the AI. It's a massive data set showing which groups thrived based on internal cohesion, on how well this belonging algorithm was running.
Precisely. It spots that deep, repeating pattern. Groups that stick together, that foster belonging, tend to do better. There's a clear survival advantage shown in the data.
Okay, that makes sense historically. Now, connecting it to us biologically, how does this algorithm show up in our physical selves? What patterns does the AI find in biology data?
The sources tie this really strongly to our evolution. Think about prehistoric data points. An AI could analyze early tools, signs of shared hunting or gathering, even fossil evidence of healed injuries.
Injuries that someone couldn't have survived alone.
Exactly. Things that imply group care. The AI correlates that kind of group cooperation in the data with much higher survival and reproduction rates, which suggests a powerful selective pressure over ages and ages, basically wiring social connection mechanisms right into our biology.
Okay, so evolution favored the connected. And in modern humans, if an AI looks at, like, brain scans, does it see that wiring?
Oh, absolutely. Analyzing neuroscience data from loads of studies, the AI sees a clear correlation, social connection. It lights up the brain's reward pathways. You know, the dopamine hits, the oxytocin release, the areas linked to pleasure, reinforcement.
And the feel-good chemicals.
Right. The brain's data basically says, yes, this is good. Do more of this connection stuff.
Yeah.
It's a biological thumbs up.
So the AI sees the reward signal, but belonging isn't always positive. What about the flip side? The pain of not belonging, loneliness.
Yeah, this is really crucial. The AI analysis picks up on something striking in the brain data here.
Yeah.
Social rejection, intense loneliness. The data correlates strongly with activity in the same brain regions linked to physical pain, like the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex.
Wait, seriously, so loneliness activating the physical pain centers. It's not just like a metaphor the AI sees.
The analysis suggests it's much more direct than a metaphor. The brain seems to use a similar alarm system for, help, I'm dangerously isolated, as it does for, ouch, I stubbed my toe.
Wow.
Because from an evolutionary standpoint, being totally isolated was often, fatal. So the pain is an urgent signal. Reconnect.
Yeah, really powerful biological driver for this algorithm. Okay, moving up a level from biology, how does this AI analysis link belonging to more abstract things like human beliefs, philosophy maybe,
Well, imagine feeding an AI huge amounts of text, philosophical works, religious texts, cultural stories from all over the world. The AI would identify recurring themes, right? Community, shared values, responsibility to the group, finding meaning together.
Things that bind people.
Exactly. It sees how most ethical systems, even across very different cultures, tend to have principles that promote group cohesion, fairness, empathy within the group, cooperation.
So the AI isn't judging the philosophy itself, but analyzing its function, how these belief systems work to strengthen the group's bonds based on the data.
Precisely. It looks for correlations. Do societies with strong, cohesive belief systems show greater stability or longevity in the historical data? Often, yes. Actions that reinforce the group tend to correlate with positive group outcomes in the data. Actions that fracture the group, correlated with instability, collapse.
That's a really detached, functional view of morality and belief systems. Fascinating. Now, the sources mentioned something that sounded odd, AI connecting belonging to physics and math. How does that work?
Yeah, it's about using concepts from those fields as analytical tools, as models, like the emergent properties idea from physics we touched on.
Yeah.
Complexity arises from simple interactions. The AI sees complex human social behavior cultures, institutions emerging from individuals, basically following this underlying belonging algorithm, simple drive, complex outcome.
Okay, so physics provides an analogy for the complexity. What about math?
There, the sources point to things like network theory. It's a mathematical way to study connections between things. And AI can analyze a human society as a massive network. People are the nodes, relationships are the links between them.
Like a giant social graph.
Exactly. And you can mathematically model the structure of that graph, how dense the connections are, who's central, who's isolated.
And what does that math tell the AI about belonging?
It lets the AI quantify things like social capital, how influence spreads, or who's vulnerable to becoming isolated. A person, a node with strong connections, less isolated, contributes more to the network's strength. A whole network with tight internal bonds, more resilient. The AI can even try to model the utility, the benefit that individuals and the group get from strong connections.
Utility, benefit. It sounds calculating, like it's adding up points for safety or resources.
It is purely analytical, yeah. Looking at the data, the AI correlates things like feeling safe in a group, having access to shared stuff, getting emotional support, having a shared identity. It correlates those with measurable success metrics for the individual and the group. Survival rates, stability probabilities. Yeah. And if an individual's analytical utility score for belonging drops too low, maybe they feel unsafe, or cut off the AI might predict problems. Distress, trying to find a new group, withdrawing.
And the group itself might react if someone's hurting the group's overall utility score.
That's what the historical and social data patterns suggest, things like ostracism, shunning. The AI sees these as mechanisms groups use to protect their cohesion, their collective utility. It's a functional analysis of group dynamics.
It definitely strips away the emotion, but highlights the function. Okay, so this need clearly shapes our inner world too, right? Our identity, our state of mind.
The data analysis strongly backs that up. AI finds consistent links between having a strong sense of group identity, family, community, culture, whatever, and positive mental health markers in the data.
Makes sense.
And the opposite holds too. Data on isolation, exclusion. It correlates with higher rates of depression, anxiety. Belonging really seems to anchor us psychologically. It gives us a framework for who we are.
And how does this powerful drive influence how we actually treat each other day to day?
Well, on the positive side, analyzing behavioral data, the AI sees belonging correlating with more trust, more empathy, at least towards fellow group members, more cooperation, more resilience when things get tough. Strong bonds act like a buffer.
Okay, but there's a dark side, isn't there? This is where the us versus them dynamic comes roaring in.
Absolutely. The AI analysis of conflict, data wars, prejudice, polarization, it clearly shows this pattern. The drive to belong to our group can flip into suspicion, bias, even aggression towards other groups. It's like the protective function of the belonging algorithm gets twisted. You solidify your own group's identity by defining it against another.
So the same drive that helps us cooperate can also fuel terrible divisions. How does the world around us, like society, react to or even use this fundamental need?
Oh, it's everywhere in the data. Societies constantly structure themselves around belonging. Families, schools, companies, governments, they're all frameworks for grouping people, regulating how we connect.
Right.
Marketing data shows brands constantly appealing to our desire for community or identity. Join our tribe, basically.
Yeah.
And social media designed to connect us, right?
Yeah.
But the usage data analysis sometimes shows these weird correlations with more loneliness, paradoxically.
It seems like almost everything humans build plugs into this core drive somehow. The sources even got into extreme stuff, what an AI perspective might make of, say, cruelty or violence.
The analysis tends to frame those as failure states or maybe distortions of the belonging algorithm. Sometimes extreme violence against an outgroup is analyzed as a way to boost the in-group sense of belonging and loyalty. Think extremist groups.
Wow, okay.
In other cases, like maybe individuals who seem to lack empathy, the AI might look for data correlations suggesting biological or developmental issues that impair the basic social machinery needed for healthy belonging.
So the AI isn't labeling it evil, but analyzing it as behavior stemming from a broken or warped version of this fundamental belonging system.
From a purely analytical standpoint, yes. It looks at the data patterns associated with these behaviors and tries to understand them in relation to the algorithm's intended function: stable, cooperative group survival.
The source is also connected belonging to other big human behaviors like addiction or pleasure-seeking, even faith. How did that work?
Analyzing data patterns again. AI might see correlations suggesting that substance abuse, or maybe excessive risk-taking, could be linked to individuals lacking strong social ties. Maybe they're seeking artificial substitutes for belonging, or just trying to numb the pain of isolation.
Makes sense. And faith.
Faith systems, analyzing religious texts and participation data, often appear in the analysis as incredibly powerful frameworks for creating deep shared identity. A sense of purpose and belonging not just to a community, but maybe to something bigger, cosmic.
It really is amazing how many threads seem to lead back to this one core drive when you look at it analytically like this.
Which kind of brings us to how we even know about this drive. Humans figured out the benefits of cooperation ages ago, implicitly. That turned into conscious understanding through stories, philosophy, eventually psychology. Human understanding started with intuition, observation.
Right.
AI's understanding, though, it starts differently. It starts by crunching massive data sets of all those human expressions and behaviors. It gets it when it processes enough data to see this incredibly strong, repeating statistical pattern.
So what can this AI analytical view add? What might it see that traditional research or our own intuition misses?
Well, scale and complexity mainly. AI can find correlations across unbelievably huge and diverse data sets, linking genetics to social networks, migration patterns to language changes, brain scans to online chats, stuff humans just can't process manually.
Okay.
It can spot really subtle patterns, maybe build predictive models: who's at risk of isolation, how might the social policy affect group cohesion. It can simulate things.
It gives us a new lens on the mechanics underneath it all. But, and this feels important, it's just a tool, right? The sources emphasize this. The AI can't feel belonging.
Absolutely critical point. The sources are very clear. AI is an analysis engine. It can model belonging, predict things based on data associated with belonging, but it has zero subjective experience of it. It analyzes empathy patterns. It doesn't have empathy.
And there was that warning about using AI to try and engineer happiness, the happiness trap.
Right. The idea that while AI could suggest ways to connect or even create sophisticated virtual interactions, using it to just optimize for feeling good all the time or to provide purely artificial belonging, that's tricky. An AI just chasing positive emotional data points might lead us towards something shallow, maybe even manipulated, missing the real, messy, sometimes difficult human experiences that are part of genuine connection and growth, like vulnerability, struggle.
So AI can help us understand the how and why of the mechanism, but it's no substitute for actual messy, real human connection.
Exactly. That human experience involves things like mutual care, shared history, feeling truly seen, stuff that's just beyond analytical modeling.
Okay, wow. We've covered a huge amount of ground here. From ancient history and our biology through philosophy, math analogies, social dynamics, right up to AI itself, all seen through this specific AI analytical lens.
And the main takeaway, looking at it that way, is pretty stark. This human need for belonging isn't just a nice-to-have, a social preference. Analytically, it looks like a deeply programmed, complex, emergent property, a critical driving algorithm shaped by evolution for survival and stability.
Yeah, and we saw how that algorithm shows up everywhere in our brain chemistry, the arc of history, our belief systems, our best moments of cooperation, and unfortunately, our worst us versus them tendencies.
And AI gives us this new, powerful tool to analyze it across vast scales, spot hidden patterns, model its function. But, and it's worth repeating, the sources insist. It's a tool. It doesn't feel. It can't replace authentic human connection. Never should.
So, thinking about all this, this analytical, almost cold, AI-driven view of belonging as this core human algorithm. How does hearing that perspective maybe shift how you, listening now, think about your own need for connection, your relationships, the groups you're part of?
And the sources leave us with one final thought on that, which I think really pulls it together. It suggests that really grasping this deep analytical understanding of belonging, maybe aided by AI insights like these, isn't just about gaining more head knowledge.
You could actually change something deeper.
It has the potential, the sources suggest, to fundamentally alter your state of mind. By seeing this powerful underlying pattern so clearly, you might approach your own social world, your connections, and maybe the wider human community with a bit more intention. Perhaps even more compassion.
Seeing the algorithm to become more human. That's a powerful idea to chew on. Thanks for exploring that with us today.
This is DigitView.